Good morning. Would like to remind everyone to please make sure that all cell phones are turned to the off or vibrate position. Also, please be advised our city council meetings are broadcast on Comcast Channel 99, AT&T UVerse, and the City of Gadsden YouTube channel. This meeting of the Gadsden City Council will now come to order. The chair calls on City Clerk Ivan Nelson for the roll call.
Councilwoman Latham.
Present.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Avery.
Here.
Councilman Back.
Here.
Councilman Wilson.
Here.
Councilwoman Minatra.
Here.
And Councilman Robinson.
Here.
We have a quorum present and our meeting is open for business. I'm going to ask Keith Williamson to lead the invocation. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings you've given us, Father. We thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy most of all. Just pray that we acknowledge you in all that we do, Father, seek your will in all that we do, and never resist you at any time, Father. I pray for this council and administration, Lord, that you just grant them wisdom, guidance, knowledge, and discernment to go forward in each and every action that they take. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the work session and city council meeting held on May 30th.
So moved. Second.
Clerk, will you take the vote?
Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries to approve minutes.
Item 6, the chair will entertain a motion to ratify payment of accounts for the week of May 26th through June 1st.
So moved. Second.
Clerk, will you take the vote?
Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries to ratify payment of the accounts.
Item 7 is proclamations and commendations. I don't believe we have any of those today. Item 8 is unfinished business. We also have none today. Agenda item 9 is a resolution expressing intent to financially support the Challenger Center of Northeast Alabama with certain conditions. This is to assist in obtaining a state supplemental appropriation of $8.5 million, which requires a 10% match toward the cost of the project and commits the city to an annual appropriation of $50,000 for a 5-year period with certain conditions. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
Mr. President, I'm just for several reasons. As you know, this is a little bit unprecedented in the 10% match part that's included in the budget, the state budget. I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm going to make a motion that we table this until we get more clarification. Again, as I told y'all last week, I've reached out to Erica Mackey, who's the general counsel for the Department of Commerce, to ask for clarification on what exactly meets these qualifications for this 10% match that the state is requiring in the supplemental budget language. She did respond to me last week and said that it's unclear to the Department of Commerce exactly what qualifies for this 10% match, and that they've gone back to the legislature now and are asking for clarification from the legislature on exactly what funds are considered to be a match for this 10%. So I know we're all excited about the Challenger Center, but I just don't want to get this wrong. I don't want us to vote on something and not get it right. So I would like to make a motion that we table this until we get some sort of clear direction from the Department of Commerce on because they will be the ones that actually are handling that $8.5 million in funds. So I want to get clear directive from them before we take action on this. So that would be my motion, that we table this, I guess, indefinitely until we get a reply from them.
All right, so we have a motion to table indefinitely. Is there a second?
Yes, I second. I agree with that. Thank you.
Second. All right, is there any other discussion? I think it'd be prudent to point out, to concur with Councilman Wilson, this is not a no vote. This is just kind of tapping the brakes, making sure that we're getting it right. And also, if you've been with us last week or seeing the council meetings, we have a $2.8 million public works request for capital equipment. There are some other large requests coming that we're not privy to talk about now that involve property and things that are going to be really exciting for the city. all that to say, there's a lot of money that will be spent here in our city by this council here in the next probably 30 to 60 days, or if not spent, at least committed. So our responsibility as the council members is to shepherd the taxpayer money. So we want to make sure that we don't overcommit the city's resources and to follow the mayor's lead on things that are coming. Some things we're not sure of because of the way the NDAs work and stuff. I just know there's a lot of activity going on the second floor, and so we just want to make sure that we get this right. We don't want to commit to something and then not be able to fulfill that commitment.
Mr. President, I just want to
Yes,
thank
Mayor.
the council for this motion and thank y'all for your due diligence. Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
and just to add to that, you know, there was a lot of confusion in the excitement about this Challenger program and trying to get it here, and I think we're going to be, long-term, we are going to be successful, but, you know, there was initially, I think a lot of people involved in the project believed that if they didn't get this financial commitment by a certain deadline with the legislature, the legislative session closing, that somehow we would lose that funding, and that's not the case. The Department of Commerce has clarified that they've got some time before they'll have to show that 10% funding match. So we've got some time to really sharpen our pencils and get it right. And the city has a lot of ways that they can support this project. And so once we get some clarification from the Department of Commerce, I think we'll be in a much better situation to make a decision. That's all I'm saying.
Any other comments? All right.
I just want to say something, Mr. President. I just want to
Yes,
be clear
Councilman Smith.
and just emphasize again that we do support the Challenger Center. We do support what the Challenger Center represents. But I do believe it would be the best interest of the taxpayer and the council to table this and come back and revisit it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, clerk, will you take the vote?
Those in favor to table the resolution for an indefinite period, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries to table.
All right, agenda item 10 is new business. We have none. Item 11 is reserved for department reports, committees, and boards. And do we have anybody to give any reports from our departments?
I have a question, if possible. Could we get an update on what's going on with the land bank? I'm getting, from my extensions, I'm getting a lot of requests concerning the land bank and purchasing of property. So could we get an update real quick from
Mayor, is that,
So
okay.
could we ask Rod Scott?
Mr. Scott,
He's
yes.
doing that.
Before I begin, I would like to say that most of the questions that you're getting is because the land bank had become, in my perspective, dysfunctional. We cannot continue to sustain a land bank where we have to repeatedly come to the council to get quiet title for property. And that's primarily because we are undercutting and selling property $100, $500, and it takes us about $5,000 to get quiet title. That means that we will be constantly delayed in achieving quiet title for the land bank. So with that, there's an extensive study that's going on the most successful land banks and understanding their bylaws, policies, and procedures in the functions that they provide. That will be completed as soon as possible, and when that is completed, we will have an internal discussion on the viability of implementing those policies.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
So, Mr. President, so
Yes, Mayor.
I more than anyone, am wanting Representative Scott to push it out, but we want to push it right. We want to make it right. And as I've said before, Rod's a heck of a lot smarter than I am. But he was up here till 9 o'clock last night, and he stays up here till 8 or 9 o'clock every night, and he's doing everything he can to get this thing out and push it right, and he wants to make sure it's mapped correctly. We lost our, what do you call him, GIS mapper, Heath.
Yeah.
And we're in the midst of hiring another one right now. We should have the new one on board in the next 2 weeks. So Rod's been working with another guy who's not really, he is qualified, but that's not his job. But he's been working with him, and we want to have a website updated, and we want to have the GIS map updated, and we want to have everything ready to go as soon as we go. So we're excited about what's to come. So thank you, Rod.
One other, because I had a constituent that came to my house at 11 last night, and one of the questions is that they have already put in for property. I guess maybe either in the last administration, between the last administration or between it was temporarily shut down. What is going to happen with their request of what they was told that they can get the property for, and or for what they have already put it in for, if it's still to your statement when it comes to $100, $200 compared to what?
One of the primary issues is quiet title. To begin the quiet title process and for it to end can be very extensive. It could take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get quiet title for a piece of property. Now, the board that existed at the time was there to make any commitments that were to be made. And there were some commitments made by the board that were lived up to. So that would have to be what I would call a very careful discussion that we have to make sure that we honor the city's word.
Okay.
Well, Mr. President, if I can add
Yes,
just a
Councilman.
little bit. Just because I was part of the previous council when the city formed the land bank, just to give everybody kind of the backstory in the public, so y'all know what we're talking about here. Gadsden is one of only 3 cities in Alabama that formed one of these land banks. Birmingham and Mobile are the other 2. And the idea is that the city of Gadsden right now, within our city limits, I think there's close to 1,000 properties that are owned by the state, okay? They're not owned by the city. We don't own the property. And what happens is, let's say an older individual passes away, their children have moved off to some other town or something, and they don't pay the property taxes once the parents pass away, so the property just sits there, and eventually the state files a tax lien on that property and says, we own your property now until you pay this back taxes, state property taxes. Well, that property just sits there. Well, and in a lot of instances, the amount of taxes that are owed on that vacant lot are way higher than what the vacant lot's actually worth. So who's going to come buy a vacant lot that's maybe actually worth $500 when you owe $5,000 in back taxes on it? So the property just sits there forever. And guess what? The state of Alabama doesn't send us any money to go help cut that grass and maintain that property. We got 1,000 properties that the state says they own, but we got to go out there and find a way to cut the grass and maintain them. And so what we did was we said, okay, we're going to start this land bank because the state legislature passed a law that said if the property has been owned by the state for 5 years, then a land bank can come and ask the state to take the property back. And to Mr. Scott's point, that process cost about anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 to go through that process just to get one piece of property back from the state with a clean, what he's referring to as a quiet title, meaning it's clean, there's no liens on it, and now the city owns it, or the land bank would own it in that scenario. So what the land bank did in the beginning was, we're not just going to go out and voluntarily try to get all these properties back from the state, because that cost us a fortune. And now the property's all just sitting in the land bank. We'll wait until somebody approaches us and says, hey, we'd like to get this property over here, and it's owned by the state, and then the land bank could start the process of getting it back from the state with a clean title so that we could give it to the citizen and get it back to somebody who's going to maintain it and care for it. So the mass of properties in the city of Gadsden, my point is, are not owned by the land bank. They're owned by the state of Alabama, and the original plan was to take it on a case-by-case basis. As somebody came, we would go out and look at the property and see if it made sense. But as Mr. Scott said, it's not a financially viable system for the city. We lose money every time we have one of those transactions. We go out and pay $5,000 to get the title, and then we sell it to somebody for $500. It doesn't take an economist to figure out that math doesn't work for long. It's not sustainable. So now to Mr. Scott's point, I think the goal is how do we figure out how to make this land bank viable to where we can get the properties back. And in the meantime, in the midst of all this, the state legislature actually changed the law again, and now they said it doesn't have to be owned by the state for 5 years. It's only got to be owned by the state for 3 years, I think now, maybe two. Is it two? Yeah. It's three, Michael? Okay. So anyway, this whole idea of land bank things is a really new process, and it kind of sat around for a while here in Gadsden, and nobody really knew about it, and then it kind of blew up, and now everybody's asking about it, and we got to make sure we get it right.
So just to remind everybody, it's a 5-member board that's appointed by the mayor to the council, and Rod is just lent to the board and is appointee of the board from the mayor's office. His job's just to come up with the rules for the board to adopt, and the board is a separate entity, so they're a standalone entity. So,
Yeah, they're an outside agency.
yeah. So I just want to remind everybody.
Final question to the, and this goes again to, I guess, previous conversations, possibly with the previous administration. I can't remember specific for the new council and administration. The persons that live beside a vacant lot that is want to acquire that property, is that language different with the study, or going to be similar to the study that you're doing, or is it still the language of the previous administration coming on to this administration that we will work with you in allowing you to acquire that property?
Quite frankly, it has to be different. You go to most viable land banks, and what they do is they will lease next door neighbor property for a period of time at a very low expense. But the idea is to have homes built on those properties, not to have them as vacant lots next door to homes.
Okay, so still putting that also on hold with until your group comes up with a complete assessment of what it's
Yeah,
going to be.
and I can tell you, one city in Alabama is currently leasing their next-door neighbor properties for about $100 a year, but the properties are still for sale.
Well, and I'm sorry, Mr. President, I'll just put one more exclamation point on this, not to beat this horse, but I want to drive home the point that there's about 1,200 vacant lots in the city of Gadsden. Over 1,000 of those are owned by the state, or about 1,000, I think, roughly. Some of those are owned by the city of Gadsden outright and already have a clean title. So the answer to the question that's being posed, I think, Councilman, is it really depends on who owns that dirt. If the state owns the dirt, it's going to be a process to get it back, and that's going to cost money. If the city owns that vacant lot and it's next door to your house, I imagine, I won't speak on behalf of the mayor's office, but I imagine the city would be very anxious to offload that property for very cheap to the neighbor, if the city owns it. So you really got three scenarios. Either the state owns it for back taxes, the city owns it, or the private individual still owns it. That individual may just be a vacant lot that somebody owns and they're not doing anything with it. So of course the city can't do anything with that. So it really depends on who owns that dirt. If a private individual owns it, you would need to go to them and offer them $500. If the city owns it, you could come to the mayor's office and say, I want to buy it. But if the state owns it, that's where the land bank gets involved.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to mention one thing, Mr. Scott. Maybe, I'm not sure what that process looks like. You said we're going back and looking at the numbers again. We just want to keep in mind that the information has already been put out there, that they're going to be able to get those lots at a very reduced rates. I want to see if we can maybe implement a plan that if a person intends to build, maybe we can offer them some incentives to maybe lower that cost a little bit. Let's say if we sell them for $5,000, just rough example, if we know, because we got a real housing problem right now, a serious housing problem. But if we know for sure a person is ready to build on that lot, maybe in those situations especially, we can offer them some kind of incentives to maybe purchase a lot at a little bit less than $4,000 or $5,000. Just something to think about. I'm not sure what the process looked like, but if we can just consider that.
Believe me, it will be evaluated, but it's a much more complex issue than we're discussing right now. Let's just say there's some nuances to what we in this council needs to achieve within the city of Gadsden. We have to look forward to economic growth, but in our process of looking forward to economic growth, there has to be an evaluation of the status of residential property within Gadsden. And a lot of the homes are not what a lot of markets consider to be as viable. And that's why there are more rentals than we would like to see within the city.
And Councilman Smith, to your point, I couldn't agree more. One of the things that we had discussed potentially in some conversations with some residential development projects over the course of the last couple of years is it's really hard for us to give incentives directly to individuals, so to speak, for residential building. But what we could do is potentially, if this land bank project really does come together, is we could potentially offer properties that are ready to build. You know, some of these vacant lots have trees all over them. They're uneven. They've still got structures and foundations from where old houses used to be. It may be, and this goes into this request for all this new public works equipment that we're asking for, it may be that it could be the philosophy of the city that if you're purchasing a land bank property, yes, it's going to cost $5,000, but it's shovel ready. You know,
Right.
we've went in there and leveled
Right.
it out and got the curb poured and got everything stubbed out so that that we offer any land bank property that's ready to build on. So that would end up saving the buyer a significant amount of money. So
Right.
there are some ways to work around it, I think.
Yeah, now even that would be great because you're gonna spend a couple of thousand just getting that lot prepared to
Right.
start building on, just something to get, some people inside a home that they can call home. So just want something to consider going forward. But we will be able to make some kind of announcement soon that these lots will be available, whatever the price we're going to set them for. I guess back to Councilman Avery's point, that we can at least get something out to the public that these lots are now available. This is what it's going to cost. This is the time they'll be available.
Yes, I think that is the process that we like to take. But what you have to do as well is look at the evolution of the land bank in its availability of providing the services to meet the city growth needs.
Great, fair enough.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Appreciate all the questions. Good dialogue. Thank you. Any other department reports or committees? Before we move on to citizen requests, we do have some guests with us today that I'd like to recognize. We have from Senator Tuberville's office, Jordan Mills. Jordan, thank you for being here today. And we also have Mike Rada. Mike, thank y'all. If I understand it correctly, Jordan is currently our representative for Senator Tuberville's office for this part of the state. He's moving on to another position, and Mike Rada is going to take Jordan's place. So Mike Rada is going to be our contact for Senator Tuberville's office. So, yes, John.
Jordan was instrumental in the $6.5 million that we got.
Hey, go to so the TV can hear. They won't be able to hear what you're saying.
So he's leaving, that's why we clap for Mike.
Yeah, exactly. So Jordan was pretty instrumental in helping us get the money from the Tuberville's office. It was about $6.5 million. So I want to publicly thank you for the hard work that you've done, and thank you for that $10 million we're going to get from Tuberville's office next year. So thank you guys. Exactly. That's right.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you saying that. And Jordan, thank you for the work, because I know that you've done a lot of work. I've heard from Mayor Ford and from John that you've really gone to bat for the city of Gadsden, and that is deeply appreciated by everybody here. So thank you, and we wish you nothing but the best in your next venture. And don't forget Gadsden, come back and see us sometime, and we'd love to have you. Mike, looking forward to working with you. You know, I'm not going to miss the opportunity. Mike, Councilman Wilson and I are Auburn graduates. You're the guy that gave Cadillac Williams the name Cadillac Williams, so thank you. He's one of our, we're going to claim him as one of Gadsden citizens. He went to Etowah in Attala, but we love him just the same. So thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. Thanks for being here today. All right, now we'll move on to citizens' requests. The first we'll ask Larry Suttles. Mr. Suttles has asked to speak on flooding, grass cutting, and debris. And as Mr. Suttles approaches the podium, I just want to remind the speakers today, we have three, the rules and procedures that y'all have signed to speak today. You can only, you have to speak to what you said you wanted to speak to, flooding, grass, cutting debris. Your remarks are limited to 5 minutes. Ms. Nelson's going to keep the timer. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any member specifically. No question may be directed to any council member, mayor, or city employee without the permission of the president. So with that being said, Mr. Suttles, welcome. Good to see you again.
All right, good to see y'all. My name is Larry Suttles. I live at 2322 Hill Avenue. One of the problems I want to really address is in Oakland State, which I have already addressed once before last year. I have these pictures I need the new city council to see.
Oh, there you go.
Now, once you look at those pictures, it's really a shame for people to ride on this one street, which is Carolyn Street or Carolyn Avenue. The curves are so bad, you would tear up your car. I almost tore up mine last year because of I'm going to my cousin's house to see about her because her son was killed last year. So with those curves being like that, this city must have some money to spend for people out of automobiles. And there is a hole in one of the in the circle of the street. Now, I did address to y'all that I will be visiting everybody's district. I'm not just going on one. I'm at all of them. Now, the next thing I want to address is 11th Street project again. I was asked about it from some citizens, what they're going to do. I'm aware of it because Mr. Williams has already talked about it, but I was addressed again about it, and I wanted to bring it up. Are we going to wait till something happens, somebody get killed or injured before we do anything as a whole, as a city? And Forest Avenue, same thing. Black Creek is only 100 meters from the situation we have on Forest Avenue. And it flooded so bad, which I addressed to Mr. Williams also. When I do something, I take pictures or video to bag up anything I say. I expect when I address something to y'all as a whole, I like to have an answer, and I like for you to make sure this is something that's gonna work for the city. Not just tell me anything and think I ain't gonna look behind it. I do that. I'm ex-military, and that's what I do. So can we get the city get some answer for all the bad situations and about the grass cutting? Some of the areas need to be cut. I have a household there in front of up the street from me. The grass is taller than I am. I'm 6'3". This is awful. This is really awful. I know we got a shortage in people. I know y'all are addressing the situation with the equipment, but I addressed that situation with the equipment with the department head last year. He acted like he didn't need no more. So we making excuses. We need to do something. We need a resolution, not just say things. So anybody have any questions for me?
So, Mr.
Mr.
President,
So, well, I just want to say this, the forum for the city council meeting is that the citizens get to come and speak for up to 5 minutes, and like you've been given a chance to do. It's not really a forum for question and answers. I think, and you've got some great points, by the way. I think what your next move would be to get with the administration, go to the mayor's office, and set a meeting up because the council we're the legislative body. We don't control what the engineering department or the public works department does, but the mayor's office does. So that's where your resolution lies, is in the administration office. So I would encourage you to contact the administration, try to set an appointment, and then you can address those directly with the administration.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Suttles, on the grass cutting, I've asked people, if you've noticed a yard being higher than 12 inches, the council has passed an ordinance. If you would please call our office and let us know the address, then we'll submit that address to Mr. Harbison, and then they will inspect it, and then we passed an ordinance, and then they'll issue a warning, and then we'll go from there.
I did address it with Mr.
Harbison.
Harbison's office.
Okay.
So nothing has happened.
Well, I'll follow.
There's snakes real bad over there.
Okay, I'll follow up with them. The next thing is, not to make light of what you said, is there any way I could get you to autograph these 2 pictures that you put in our packet? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next citizen request comes from Joseph Cole. Mr. Cole is asked to speak on the Agricola drainage improvements.
Good morning.
Good morning.
See how the rule changes. First of all, I would like to thank the members of the council for your support. I had sent some information to you about this is Juneteenth, and we're celebrating, and we was trying to get some. Let me thank the employees.
Well,
I just want to thank you for your donations, and thank you, Mr. Robinson. We never met, but I appreciate your donation that all of you made to the Boys and Girls Club. Now, may I go on?
Yes, sir, you please.
Thank you. I'm here today, see the rules change a little bit, but that's okay. I was going to ask you to let the engineer speak, but he cannot speak since the rule have
That's right.
changed. But I'm going to present what I have to present. Dealing with, as you said, the topic I'm supposed to speak on is the Agricola drainage improvements. The last time I was at council meeting, I had made some inquiries about monies being spent over in District 3, and the council member, if I'm allowed to call his name, Wilson, informed me that there was $6 million had been passed by the council to do work over in this area on the drainage. And I had searched around and didn't see anything, hadn't talked to anybody who saw anything, so I went to the city council to get the information. And I have the information. And I'd like for somebody to comment on it because something needs to be stated. In sections A, B, C, and D, the total amount for those 4 sections was about $3 million. I don't know what the section are. But the next is Plainview Street, $316,000. Abercrombie Street, $571,000. Hilliard Street, $325,000. North 11th Street, north of Tuscaloosa, I'm saying that $480,000. North 11th Street, south of Tuscaloosa, $147,000. Spring Street, $409,000. Warner Street, and all of these streets are in District 3. I'm very much familiar with all of them because I used to live in District 3. It's $413,000. Kyle Street and Evans Street, $453,000, made a total of $6,039,065.59. So this is the amount of money, but in the past year, this was dated March of 2022. This is June of 2023. When is the work going to start? Have you decided not to do any work? Or are you going to put the funds somewhere else? The citizens of that district would like to know. The reason I was going to ask you to let the engineer, because he could probably give us and these people in here some information, but you don't want anybody responding. So will you respond or at some time let these citizens know this $6,039,065 supposed to be spent in District 3, and this was sent out in March of 2022. And it is now June of 2023. So I know you're not going to respond to me, but please let the citizens know.
I'll respond.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Coe.
respond during the mayor's comments.
All right, that'll be fine. We,
As will I, since he referenced me by name.
let's call it just a pause here. The city council meetings by state law are constructed to where it's an open meeting. You, the citizen, have every right to come and watch and listen. It doesn't require that you have the right to participate. And so we've chosen as a council to let citizens come if they if they request to be on the council by Friday by noon before the next Tuesday, you can speak to the council. And that's been the practice of the Gadsden City Council probably since 1986. So we do that. We ask that we do have the Robert's Rules of Order is what this council has voted to operate by, because we have to have some kind of a procedure and some type of a forum of which to do this. These are all good questions that Mr. Suttles and Mr. Cole have posed, and this just is not the forum to have that kind of an answer. To be fair to our city engineer, he probably knows the answer off the top of his head, But you have to understand, he's probably on his desk, he has around $100 million of projects. It's well over 100 individual projects. He's not going to be able to, unless he's sitting at his desk with access to the computer, to have an adequate answer. That's why I've already said that if you want to have a meeting on something like this, go to the administration office, the mayor's office, request a meeting, and ask exactly what you want to talk about, and we'll be glad to answer those questions. Full transparency is the goal of this government and of this body, and that's what we're going to do. But the rules have to be to where it's fair on both sides. So there's a lot of folks here today. Very glad you're here. Hope you come every Tuesday. But we have to do this in a way that is conducive to getting the right answer and not just kind of shooting from the hip. And so we don't have a back and forth because this isn't the forum for that in city government. This is a business to conduct a meeting to conduct the business of the city of Gadsden. This 7-body member up here is responsible for a $54 million budget, and we have to get it right. And so we can't do it if there's questions and hand raising and things coming from the audience. We have to have a certain decorum so we can conduct your business in a proper way. You have every right to ask any question at the right time, but it goes to the mayor's office. And that's where the administration is done. We're the legislative body. So please don't mishear me, and please don't think that I'm not wanting to hear from anybody and that I'm not going to answer a question. As a legislative member, I'm probably not going to answer your question. That'll come from the mayor or one of his department heads. That's the way that it works. That's the proper way to do it. You don't want one of us 7 answering questions on a $6 million project. We don't do that. We approve it, but we don't know the details. That's up to the mayor, and it's up to how he wants to conduct his office and how he wants to meet. So that being said, I'm really reticent to have comments because but I understand that your name's been called, and our rules say you're not supposed to call somebody's name, and that's been done. But and I know we all want to speak, and so, but I think what usually happens, you two guys speak, somebody out there wants to speak, and it puts me in an awkward situation. So, I think to answer your question, Mr. Cole, I would encourage you to call the mayor's office and set a meeting. He'll get an appointment with Heath Williamson, our city engineer, and I know you can have the answers to your question. From a general point of view, those projects have been encumbered. They have been voted on by a previous council that Councilman Wilson and I served on, and those projects are moving forward. Nothing happens fast at City Hall. You have to also understand, across our country 3 years ago, we had a pandemic. All this federal money comes from Washington, D.C. There are tons and tons of drainage projects in every city, in every county, in every state going on right now. There's not enough engineering firms and construction firms to do all the work. So it's going to take a little bit longer than normal. It's just common sense. Just think about that for a second. Every city in this county, there's 11 cities, they all have federal money. They're all putting it in drainage and pavement and capital projects. There's only so many construction companies. There's only so many paving companies that can do this work. We would ask you to just bear with us. All the work has been done. It's kind of like an airport. Everything's lined up waiting to take off. You just have to get in line, and it is slow, and it's frustrating to us. Our phones ring all the time about these very topics, and we're doing the best we can. Our engineer, our Public Works are doing the best they can. Public Works has asked for $2.8 million to purchase equipment. We don't have enough equipment. It's all broke. It's 20 and 30 and some 40 years old. We have to get the right equipment. We have good employees that know what to do. They just don't have the equipment. So things are going slower than we would normally like to see them go. So if I could move on to our next speaker, Ms. LaShayla Carter. Ms. Carter has asked to speak about recycling accessibility. The center closes at 2 p.m., not accepting certain materials.
Good morning. Thank
Good
you
morning,
for
Ms.
getting my
Carter.
name correct. Most people do not on the first try, so thank you.
Thank you.
So these are just gentle suggestions and comments considering that you cannot respond. So 2020, of course, the pandemic was here. We were all home. My children started recycling. My now 13-year-old daughter, who was going to come and speak, but she is off shadowing doctors, so she couldn't be here, so I'm standing in her stead. So her and her sister started to recycle, and one of the things that we noticed is that the recycling center closed earlier than they were getting out of school. So it left me with the responsibility. Of course, I'm busy. These jugs and these cartons and things ride around in my car for a week. I end up throwing them in the trash. It upsets my children. And so now we've moved to a said later time, but they do not accept plastics on Henry Street. And so if you look at the EPA, they say that most households do not recycle because it is inconvenient. Accessibility is a problem. And according to the EPA also, the United States ranks horrible as it relates to recycling, and we don't even want to talk about Alabama. So I've seen that this administration has focused more on littering and being able to keep our neighborhoods clean. And of course, we saw over 200 city workers go out earlier this year and begin to clean up. And then we're also talking about installing cameras to help decrease the amount of littering. But I think if we had education about our recycling and if it was accessible in the neighborhoods where most of the trash is, it would resolve the problem. Because we use a lot of cardboard. I get a lot of packages from Amazon, of course, but we also use a lot of plastics. And I'm not always able to drive all the way to Rainbow City to drop off my plastics. And then they say you can go to Walmart, but where do I go at Walmart? There's no signage there outside of our recycling center that tells us this is an alternative place to go. These are our hours. This is what we do and do not take. And the staff isn't always as friendly and accessible to help you when you pull up. So I think that these are barriers to recycling. And if it bothers my 13-year-old and my 8-year-old, it bothers me. So those are my comments about recycling. Thank you for your efforts to make that center open longer, but I think there was a statement on their page that said that they accept cardboard, plastics number 1, 2, aluminum, and other metals and paper, and that is not true. They told me they only accept cardboard, so that's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and congratulations on your children and yourself for having your own recycling program. That's outstanding. Thank you very much. All right, that's going to conclude agenda item 12. We'll go now to remarks by the mayor and council. Mayor Ford, you want to go first?
Please, before I forget.
All right.
So, Ms. Carter, I'm going to address, did she stay? So I want to address
she's in the back.
the recycling during my mayor's comments, please. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your demeanor and your comments. First of all, the website, if it's out of date, Mr. Matthews is on the second row. Howell, raise your hand if you will. Do you see him, Ms. Carter? I'd like for you to get with him after this. He may can explain in further detail about what we're doing, because we appreciate your kids and their willingness to learn about recycling. Howell's done an excellent job with our recycling program. So why are we not accepting anything other than cardboard? Well, for us to accept something, we have to have a buyer. We cannot locate any buyers for anything other than cardboard. It's kind of like a commodity market. The only thing that people are wanting right now to buy is cardboard. We have nowhere to put nobody to buy the plastic or aluminum because it's not profitable. So when it becomes profitable, we'll start accepting it again. It is my understanding, Howell, correct me if I'm wrong with a nod, that the recycling center is open till 5, is that correct? So we are open till 5 p.m., just to make sure you knew that, okay? But anything else, I do know this, we have trailers available. If you have, I know Pastor Simmons was giving out food one day, and he was giving out a ton of cardboard. And they were taking the food and throwing the cardboard in the Dipsy dumpster. And I said, whoa, we don't want to do that. Let's put do you care if we put a trailer out here? So he said, sure. So we put a trailer out there. So now they put their cardboard in the trailer. And I think once a week, recycling center will drive over there, pick up the trailer, dump the cardboard at the recycling center, and take the trailer back to New Liberty Church. So if you have an area of town that you know a lot of people are putting out cardboard, we will bring that trailer to that area and put it out there, okay? So that would be something maybe y'all might want to think about, a church or anywhere in your community. We'd love to do that, okay? But thank you again for your comments, and don't forget to talk to him about that. But we need to fix the website, an AAR, Military After Action Review, fix the website. We are open till 5. If she needs a trailer, let's make sure that happens. And also, please, let's engage her and her children in anything we can do to help them, okay? And if you would like Mr. Matthews or anybody from us to come speak to their school about recycling, we'd love to do that to help educate them, okay? Thank you again. Okay, I'll get to the gentleman on the 4th row on the end here in a minute. Expecting to hear back from personnel consultants here shortly. We may follow up with a recommendation within the new budget. One thing we have found out is that our current rate of pay is way behind. We do know that, no surprise. We are looking into the ordinance we have about signs and how we can enforce what we have on the books to clean up and improve our city. We're also looking at possible changes to the sign ordinance to add some standards that are not in there now. This week, the Chamber will begin taking applications for the city's new micro-enterprise program, which we have been working on since we took office. This is the startup grants for low to moderate income business owners, so we're excited about that. To the gentleman on the 4th row with the glasses, I want to explain this. I would assume that you have contacted our engineer, Heath Williamson, and requested an appointment. If you haven't, you can nod. I'm sure you can. Have you? You have not? Okay. Well, that's okay. I just said nod. But I would think you would have, since you mentioned him. Because Heath is probably the best engineer in the state of Alabama, and I'll stand behind him 1,000%. And he's also one of the finest Christian men I've ever met in my life. And I mean that sincerely. So I texted Heath while you were talking, and I asked Heath, Heath, is there anything you'd like for me to say? He said, I'm happy to meet with any resident one-on-one to answer any questions on any specific project. So my question was, I'm sure he's already reached out to you, but knowing now that you haven't, I'm encouraging you to please reach out to him to get your answers, and he'll meet with you one-on-one. My next question is, how many projects were you currently taking under the ARP budget previously when we took office in November? So we've been in office 7 months, this group. 38 projects. So if you're in the audience, and I don't know who's in the audience about their drainage issues in their neighborhood, you're talking to the most ADD mayor in Alabama, I can promise you. This slowness in this government drives me crazy. I like speed. I like for things to happen. When we pass an ordinance, I want to see it happen yesterday. I'm an officer in the military. I'm a commander of a unit in Fort McClellan, Alabama, and when I say something, it usually happens in the Army. It doesn't happen that way here at City Hall or here in government. We're dealing with government, and we're dealing with constituents, and you elected us, and you're our boss, and we work for you, and I understand that. This is not my district. That's not my district. That's not my district. This is all my district. I don't favor one district or the other. I want to represent all of Gadsden, and I want to take care of all the citizens of Gadsden and treat them fairly. If anything, the district that I live in, which is the President's District, gets less money spent in its district. Should it be that way? I don't know. Rightfully so? I don't know. It's just the way it happens. But I know one thing, we're going to do what's right, and we're going to be transparent. And I didn't run to get reelected. I ran to do what's right and take care of the people in this city and make sure you get the services that are needed, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, or whatever you need. If your road is in disrepair, we're going to fix it. If there's potholes, if there's drainage, when we had the rain about 3 weeks ago, it pained us. I was on the phone with Heath at home, and we were calling Howell, putting out cones, barricades, and I said, Heath, how long is it going to take for us to fix this down at Agricola Shopping Center? He said, Mayor, I'm doing all I can. I said, what's the holdup? He said, Craig, we had 38 projects with our ARP funding. And I said, well, what does that mean? We don't have enough engineers in the state of Alabama to take our projects. Now think of Gadsden. There's a lot of municipalities in the state of Alabama. They all got ARP funding. They are all looking for engineers. The other day, we had to hire an engineering firm in Jackson, Mississippi to take on a project that we have received ARP funding for before we lose this funding. Basically, it's COVID money. If we don't have an engineer to complete the project, the design, it takes 2 years when you receive that funding to do the design, do the engineering, then you got to purchase the right-of-way. So if we want to go purchase Michael Rogers' right-of-way to do the ditch and then the ditch work, we have to agree to the price. If he says, no, I don't like the price, then we have to go to court. Then we have to have a 3-member committee to go to the judge to agree to it, and it takes a time frame to get this done. So I want you to understand, you're dealing with the most ADD mayor there is here. These employees have never worked for somebody like me, I promise you. I am your biggest advocate, and I'm trying my best to get your project completed. Don't let somebody come from out of town and stir you up over a bunch of crap, because we're working for you, and when you haven't reached out to this individual to get your answers, then you're wrong. If you want a meeting with him or you want a meeting with me, come see me. We'll ride out with you and look at your problem, and we'll tell you where it is on the project. And I can promise you, if we got the money, we're going to do what it takes to try to take care of you and your neighborhood. We are doing everything we can do to address the homelessness situation, the dog situation, to fill in potholes. I get messages at 2 a.m. in the morning. I sent Howell Matthew messages at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 7 a.m. this morning about people that sent me, why is my trash still on the road in Walnut Park? It's been here for 2 weeks. I got a message from somebody that lived in Carver. I got a pothole a foot deep. I contacted Chad here at the water department. I said, get your people out there, fill it in. Somebody's going to get hurt. I took a cone out there myself to put in the road. We are working for you, I promise you. But call us to get your answer, and I say this politely and kindly. I promise you we're working for you, and we will do everything. We will respond to you politely and we'll give you the most courtesy we can to make sure that you're taken care of. And Pastor Simmons, I want to thank you for purchasing the building, before I forget, on Hoke Street. That is a fabulous thing that you're doing, and now he's looking for help through CDBG to roof, to help feed the people in that area, and also to take care of the youth. And I want to thank you for what you're doing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Councilwoman Latham.
Let me just say thank you to those of you to your being here today and expressing your concerns for your district as well as our city. In the words of Councilman Robinson, good day of government and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Latham. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a great day in Gadsden, everybody. I say that a lot, and I mean that. And I know you probably wonder why. I'm just an optimistic person. I'm always looking on the bright side of things. We all know we got some issues, and if you know us, if you know our integrity up here, you know we're working, trying to address those, trying to fix those. If you let us know what they are, we're going to try to address them. We've been here 7 months, and so I hear him mention sometime, why is he always talking about the mayor? We know we don't work for the mayor. The mayor know we don't work for the mayor. We're the legislative body. But I see what his department is doing. I see what his staff is doing. I see what the mayor is doing. And everybody at some point need to be encouraged in what they're doing. And so even though we know we're the legislative body, I want to say again today to the mayor, to your staff, thank you for the great job that you're doing. Do we still have a long way to go? Absolutely. But if we get issues here, people are addressing them. We were out when that storm was going on. I talked to Mr. Howell myself on the phone. I could hear him in the background trying to battle that wind and that rain and that flood. But he was out there because I told him we had an issue in my district. Same thing with Parks and Recreation. Same thing with engineering. If we knew you guys wanted these numbers, we'd have had those numbers available. And so I just want to say to you all that's here, thank you for being here. But sometimes ride around and look at the new sign that's been put up, the new roads that have been paved up in pretty much every district in our city. I think all of us feel the same way. We're concerned about the entire city of Gadsden. So be patient with us. Thank you for those who came and spoke today. We're going to do everything we can to try to address those issues. And remember, there's some great things about to happen in Gadsden. So everybody stay tuned. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me say to Pastor Simmons, we're super excited about the building on Hoke Street. I mean, right there on the corner of East Broad and Hoke. A lot of people are going to be able to be fed there. A lot of homeless people will have a place to go. Since you've been in the city, I think in '89 when I first met you, the food bank, the food distribution that goes on in our city, you had a part in that, and we're going to try to do everything we can to help you to get people off the street, to feed people and to clothe people. So thank you. Thank you again, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Smith. Councilman Avery?
Yeah. North Gadsden District 3 Community Cleanup is June the 25th, 2023, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. We will meet at North Gadsden Park, 206 Goldenrod Avenue in Gadsden. We want to thank our partners thus far, which is a few. The marketing on the site has not been updated, but we want to thank Keep Eddie Wall Beautiful, Keep Alabama Beautiful, the Gadsden Titans football, basketball team, and Carver Community Revitalization Committee. We're still seeking volunteers. This is our first effort. We will do 3. We will do 1 in June, we'll do 1 in July, and we will do 1 in August. And also we're looking for partnership from Honda also. With the partnership from Honda, there will be contributions that we will receive. We can't receive them, but what we are looking at is to donate those contributions to a nonprofit organization. So please, ma'ams, please, sirs, church organizations, all. I've been asking for church organizations, just send me 2 to 3 to 5 of your deacons, if you don't mind, or someone from your organization. Also businesses, if you don't mind, please send someone from your business. It's on a Sunday, and again from 3 to 5. I want to shout out Team Jeremiah as we continue to keep him in prayer. I made that announcement about Jeremiah episode or situation last week, so we're just going to keep Jeremiah in prayer. There are some fundraisers that are going on concerning Jeremiah and his family, and so for those that have had an ill child or ill mother or ill family member, we know how tough it is when you are the caregiver, and so we're just asking if the community will rally together. I'm going to be speaking with some members of the family today to try to do a community effort for Jeremiah, a young kid that is battling cancer, and so I've seen it happen with adults, so I can imagine how this young man is going through this. But we're going to continue to press towards the mark of the high calling and pray that Jeremiah will be healed. Juneteenth, there are 2 events that I have on record of being able to announce. Carver Community Revitalization will be having a Juneteenth event at the Carver Square on Tuscaloosa Avenue on the 17th. I'll give more details on next week, and then you can also follow my Facebook page, and it will give you direct details, along with going to CCRC Gadsden on Facebook, and it will give you details of that event. They're looking for rappers, singers from gospel to R&B, and Jason, I got you, Doc. I got you. And other talents and artists and things. Again, the history of this event is more in depth, so I will be partnering with a gentleman on a group and a gentleman on Facebook to award some gifts to persons that will be able to answer the questions as it relates to Juneteenth. A lot of our history is trying to be quickly erased out of the America that we are in, so our goal is to educate as much as possible, because this is American history and just not one ethnicity history. listen, thanks to everyone that came and gave grievances on what's going on in the community. I hear these all the time as it relates particularly to District 3. I'm deeply appreciative to those that are concerned about District 3. I had someone to get on Facebook and kind of blast and campaign for the person that continues to be campaigning against me. So I guess we'll see within the next 3.5 years how that campaign goes. But we end up going out there and cutting grass together. These are efforts that I've always been willing to do. I didn't run for office to gain a name or for any particular reason that is political. I ran for office because before I leave this city, I want to do as much as I can and leave at least a foundation for my community as possible. That the next person come behind me will have something to stand on, especially more than that I had to stand on. The passion that I have seems to be anger and frustration. And sometimes it's expressed that way because, see, I've lived there for a number of years. Many of those district people have lived there for a number of years. And when it comes to the fairness of distribution of funds, things that happen in that community, from City Hall, it is not done properly, okay? But here's also a thing that I've also done. If you go back to my personal Facebook page as well as my community organization page, and even in this new page, as a council person, I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to City Hall or when it comes to the community. This is why I made the community cleanup the first announcement, because we must take pride in the place in which we live, play, and shop, and all that other stuff, okay? Meaning the citizens that live there, okay? So that's why I'm working behind the scenes in a conceited effort to get persons to invest in the property that is there next door, down the street, on the block over, and so on and so on. That's why I also argue, dispute, fuss, and some other words that I want to say concerning the trash that is in our community, be it persons coming from the outside or be it persons that live there. That's why I also go and spend time. I'm not a clubber, but I do go out, and because of the simple fact I'm tired of the shooting that leads to killing, senseless violence, and I'm tired of the tracks that are left on our streets, citizens walking up out of their bed at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning because someone wants to use Tuscaloosa Avenue as a drag race. So it's not just me being a butthole to those here at City Hall or to the mayor when I'm making comments that we may differ, because I support the mayor. My grandmother taught me that you don't applaud a fish for swimming. All right, that's what a fish is supposed to do. So I won't apologize for not saying a good job to the administration. I do that individually, so I will take this opportunity to say to the mayor and administration, thank you all for what you do, okay? I do say to those individually that I see in my community, because I haven't seen certain persons in my community. I thank King the King for coming to the Coffee with the Cop. That was very, very instrumental. They appreciated that. Thank you. I thank Ty for coming when we had the, Mr. Jackson, sorry, for coming when we had the flood there in 11th Street. I thank Heath for the continuous job they do. I thank Brian Harbison. I thank the police chief. I thank Captain Jackson and a number of people that are present. I thank Chief Reed that comes out there. I thank those persons that show their face in that community. I thank Howell for his efforts that he did with getting us a recycle bin for the lack of numbers, and numerous of others, okay? But your presence make a difference. Sitting in a space and a place and doing things behind the scenes, and I know we all are busy, definitely, is different from you coming and being there. Those persons seeing your face, they hearing your voice, and being able to connect with you and giving, speaking those concerns that they have. So in closing, I'm waiting for an email, but our district meeting is normally the second Tuesday of every month. I'm looking to have that changed to every third Tuesday of monthly. I am asking if someone from the administration, or persons rather, from the administration, I normally send to the city clerk office an email of the topics that we will talk about, so that the proper department head will come to the district meetings and acknowledge the questions that are asked from the concerns of the citizens. That's all I can do. And for some reason, a reason that I can possibly camel up, we have not been getting much participation compared to our first and second meeting, which was a great number. And so I'm asking for that participation, and that my speech and that come of my mouth, my demeanor be not taken as a personal attack. It is a concern as a citizen myself in that district, but also from other citizens that live in that district, that we have serious issues when it relates to City Hall, but also when it relates to the community itself. And so while I'm also doing my part from City Hall, I'm also personally doing my part as a citizen of that community to energize the citizens of that community that this is also our job to take care of our community. We don't look for the mayor to do everything. We don't look for the council to me to get 4 votes or 3 votes to get something done. We got to take the first step. We do, the citizens of District 3. And so that's what I'm challenging us as citizens to do. And then we have more ground, or greater ground, to hold City Hall accountable. But let's put forth first the first step in creating a better community in our district. Thank you, and I yield the remaining of my time.
Councilman Wilson.
I just want to start off with a bit of a somber note, and I promise I am not going to wax poetic today. Today is D-Day. For those of you that don't know, I want to say thank you to everybody in our community who served in the armed forces, who served in the military. The numbers, for those of you that don't know, this is the 79-year anniversary of D-Day, the invasion in World War II. And I had to look these numbers up because they're so shocking, but 4,414 Allied troops were killed on D-Day. In the ensuing Battle of Normandy, 73,000 Allied forces were killed and 153,000 wounded. That's more than double the entire population of the city of Gadsden that were killed in a single military effort that changed the world forever. So I cannot say enough to our veterans in this community, and for those who continue to serve now or have served in the past, how much I appreciate the sacrifice and your family's sacrifice for protecting our freedoms. And so please remember any veterans and thank them for their service on the 79th anniversary of D-Day. The only thing I'll say about the drainage projects, I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said, but I'll just say this. When I got elected 5 years ago to do South 11th Street, that was probably my #1 objective, and it just now started. 5 years I've waited to get South 11th Street paved. It started out with the community saying, well, we want to add a sidewalk. Well, what that means is now we got to go out and buy property from 15 different landowners so that we can build a sidewalk so our students could walk from Gadsden City High School back up into our neighborhoods in District 5. Then we had to wait on the power company to move all the power poles on South 11th Street over 6 feet to the right. Then we had to wait for the gas company to come out and move all the gas lines over a few feet. Then we had to wait on the water company to come move all the water meters over. And now, just now, 5 years I've waited to have that project, and they just now, and you know what happened the second we put the detour signs up? I started getting phone calls, people going, man, I can't believe you're detouring this street. Man, I can't get around anywhere, man. So we can't ever win, and I know that, and I'm fine with that. That's what we all signed up for. Thank y'all for coming and holding us accountable, but it does take time. Nothing here happens fast. And the same thing with the grass cutting. I just ask y'all to be mindful of that. We literally just 3 weeks ago finalized the contract to hire an outside third party to help catch up with all these vacant lots that I just explained that the city doesn't even own. We don't even own most of these lots that are overgrown. Either a private individual owns them and just doesn't cut them, or the state owns them and they just don't send anybody to cut them. They expect us to maintain it. They don't send us any money to maintain it. So just 3 weeks ago, we hired a third-party company that's going to go out there and work in all 7 districts to try to clean these vacant lots up and get the grass cut. And so give them time, 3 weeks. I mean, they bought. I mean, this guy sent me, the guy that owns the company sent me a list. I mean, they bought 25 lawn mowers, 10 trucks, hired 32 people, all these zero-turn mowers and all this stuff. And again, there's over 1,000 vacant lots in the city. So I promise you, we've done it. We've inked the deal, and help is on the way. So again, thank you all for sharing your concerns and holding us accountable. Wasn't so bad, was it, Mr. President?
That was, yeah, it was good. Council, let's see, Councilwoman Manatra.
I just want to thank District 6. We will have our first district meeting tonight at the Alabama City Library at 6 p.m. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilman Robinson.
I'm about to go off.
I call for a meeting to be adjourned.
No, just I think just to talk about this, all the trash and everything. Trust me, we get, my phone is full of photos of ditches and potholes and trash that's not picked up. And it's not, I see this, I've been out here, I've been coming to city council meetings for 8 years, and it seems like every year in the spring and in the fall this happens. And I've always asked, like, why can't we fix this? Why can't it be fixed? I'll tell you this, and I know nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants to hear give us time. But I promise you, this administration, this council, and this mayor's office is making moves to make this better for us in the future. We're going to get this done. And, Public Works does all they can do. I even asked, I called down there and said, put me on a loader truck. Let me scoop it up. I can learn how to do it. There's no loader truck to put me on. It's going to take us just a tad bit of time, but I promise you, by this time next year, I'm going to say of my opinion. I'm not going to say promise you. I'm going to say of my opinion, it's going to be a lot better, and we're not going to get all these phone calls, and everybody's going to be happy. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Councilman Robinson. If there's nothing further to be discussed, we are meeting back here at 1:30 for the nuisance and abatement hearings. We stand adjourned.